We're in Panama City. Today is September 27th, 2019. We're at the Bay Arts Alliance. Thank you. You know.
We're making up.
In Panama City. Yeah, we were making up as we went. So anyway, I'm only kidding. We came close. All right. My sound guy is Skip Eckhartz. And my name is Clarke. I'm the executive director for the Children's Coalition Incorporated in Palm Beach County. And today we are here interviewing. Sir, what is your name?
Robert L. Clarke.
Okay. All right, Mr. Clarke. And when is your birthday?
My birthday is July the 27th, 1943.
And your current address?
At 901 Kirkland Avenue, Panama City, Florida, 32401.
Okay. And what branch of the service were you in?
Air Force.
Okay. What years did you serve?
Okay, I first served in the Army from 68 to 70. Then I went in the Air Force from 79 until 95 as a reserve with the 711 Flight Squadron.
Okay. That's okay. Okay. And so you said you were in the Army first?
Yes.
Okay. Where did you go into basic training? Where were you living at the time?
Okay, I was living in Panama City. I was living in Clarke, Florida when I went in the Army in March of '68. I was a school teacher and I volunteered to go into Army. That was the end of the Vietnam conflict, and I went in just at the end. And I was shipped overseas in January of '69. I was assigned to Okinawa, Japan, and I was assigned to the 2nd Logistical Command. And my work there, I was eventually assigned to Classified Information Unit for working at headquarters there.
Okay. And that was all in the Army?
That was all in the Army.
Okay. All right. And so tell me about basic training in the Army.
Okay, basic training in the Army, it was kind of rough then. It was, in '68, everybody had to basic train to go for combat. Everybody had to be trained for 11 Bravo. You couldn't avoid being put in combat. Don't care what other unit you were assigned to do or whatever your skills were. Even though I was a school teacher before I came in, it was evident that during the Vietnam thing, everybody had to go through Vietnam training. And it was kind of rough, but I wasn't afraid of it. I was about 25 years old, 24, 25, something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was used to a rough life just coming up in the country, so I took the training kind of seriously, especially, traveling, crawling through the, when they were shooting over your head. They said if you stand up, it'll be the last thing you remember. So I remember that real well, So I didn't stand up.
Okay.
But other than that, it was kind of rough, but physically I was in good shape because I had boxed a little bit and I had ran track in high school a little bit. So my body, was in, good shape. I was a young man in good shape. So.
Where was basic training for the Army?
It was in Fort Bennings.
In Georgia?
In Georgia. That's not too far from here.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And how long was it?
It was 8 weeks then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what it is now, but it was 8 weeks and it was vigorous training. You had to run, you had to carry another soldier on your back. It was a simulated war career. It also included you being placed in like a Vietnam village, under a simulated attack on the end of it. So it was, it was really beefed up. They wanted you, if you had to go in Vietnam, they wanted you to be ready to go. We had to do the grenades, and it was live. You had to pull the pin, really. And then once you pulled the pin, if you went through all the procedures, then they would put the pin back in, but you had to do a live grenade. And so, and with the rifle range, you had to go through the real shooting. Everybody was certified. If you got a marksmanship or whatever, that you had to be certified in that.
Okay. Do you remember your instructors?
I remember the faces of some of them, and I remember the stamina and what they were required of you to do. I can see flashes of their faces. I remember some of them from Jacksonville, Florida, and all of them looked like former Marine guys. They were just so tough, and nobody was overweight. All the sergeants, they were fit down to the field, and so that's what we saw in the military training. We didn't see any overweight people running through that.
Right.
Everybody was down to size and tough and get up and go. And
What were you doing before you went in the Army?
I was a school teacher before I went in.
Okay. And why did you decide to go into the military?
Well, I had the deferments because I would have been drafted. And so I had 4 deferments from college, and it was the end of my first year teaching, so I didn't want to just keep going through deferments. And so I had gotten married, didn't have any children, so I figured it was a good time to go on and do it. So I went in and volunteered on. I was regular Army instead of being a draftee.
Okay.
So I just went volunteered and did my thing.
Okay, so where was your first duty station?
My first duty section before I went overseas, I was stationed in Louisiana, Fort Polk, Louisiana. And it was just a temporary assignment because at this time, all the people who hadn't been overseas, it was a revolving door. You were going to go overseas. You were already in an assignment pool to go overseas and had somebody else return, just like they do now,
Right.
And so it was evident that I was going overseas just whatever time. It wasn't a permanent position. You had to go overseas and do your time and then come back and be stationed somewhere permanently to that extent.
Okay. So you were in Georgia?
No, it's Louisiana.
In
Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay, what was your job there?
My job there, I worked did a little bit of personnel service work.
Okay.
Because I was an instructor in the classroom. And so what the Army was doing, they was taking use of the experience that you already had.
Right.
And since I already had experience teaching school, so they just gave me a similar position on doing something like that,
Okay.
So,
Okay. How long did that last?
that lasts for just several months. I went in March, and by the end of the year, I think just before about October, they sent me to Gary, Indiana. And even when I got there, I hadn't been overseas, and they put me in a position. They say, the Pentagon is tracking you like they do everybody else, so you're gonna go overseas. They say you can either voluntarily go to Germany or voluntarily go to Alaska, or you can stay here until you get on an assignment. So I just stayed there, and by Christmas time, they told me that you're gonna go overseas, either Vietnam or Okinawa, so whichever one, and they just put me on notice then.
So where'd you go?
I thought I was going to Vietnam. They told me I was going to Vietnam, so I let everybody know I was going to Vietnam. And then one day, all of a sudden, they came and said that Pentagon, somebody had made a mistake with one of the numbers in my serial number, and the guy that was supposed to be going with me, I thought he was going to Japan, and they had got him mixed up. And they sent for him and told him to come back to the base, and told me that I wasn't going to Vietnam, I was going to Japan, Okinawa. I said, well, whatever. They said, well, you get paid the same thing, and you get to eat regular food.
Sounds like a deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your MOS in Okinawa?
Okay, in Okinawa, I started off, they assigned me to a supply unit. Everything was just like, Okinawa was like a drop-off base for sending supplies and things. I was at a logistical command, so that's what they needed. But for some reason, a friend of mine told me about they had some openings in classified information, and if I interviewed, and since I'd already been teaching, I could easily be trained into going into that, and they needed somebody to do that. So I went to the headquarters, and I was interviewed by one of the senior enlisted people there, and then a major, one of the what you call him, he was a special major, he was an intel officer, that's what he was.
Right.
And so I interviewed with him, and he said, well, yeah, he said, I think you'd be great for the job. And he just assigned me to the Office of Classified Information, and I went over and just You know, it was an officer with a full bird colonel, a lieutenant colonel, a sergeant major, and it was a lieutenant, and then it was me.
Okay.
It wasn't a lot of people.
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And you had to be on tack. You could not make mistakes. You had to be, you know, every day when you came in and did something, it had to be. And if the general came in there and wanted to know something, and if he had a special need for it at that particular time, then you had to give it to him, you know, make sure he had access to it.
Okay. So how long did you do that?
I did that for a year and a half.
And then what happened?
They sent me back to Fort Hood, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And in Fort Hood, Texas, they assigned me to a personnel battalion, you know, where I helped process people and I did personnel records and et cetera like that. Because I think it was a staff sergeant and a sergeant by that time. And so I was assigned like a personnel team leader. You know, they take the ranking this person, and then the junior people, you know, you work so many companies with the records to make sure that they're processing and et cetera, you know. So it was a very challenging, you know, I enjoyed it.
Okay, so where are you stationed? Where were you stationed for that job? Where?
I was in Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay, and after that, did you go overseas?
No, I had been overseas. I came from Okinawa.
Right. So you back to Texas, got
Back
it.
to Texas.
So how long did you stay in Texas now?
I stayed in Texas from July, I think until the end of 70.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got out to go back to grad school. That's what it was.
What did you major in?
Well, I got out to go to grad school, but I didn't really, when I got out, I really didn't go to grad school. I went back and started teaching school.
No.
Yeah, I got out to go to grad school, but then that just didn't work out. I was trying to get in law school.
Oh.
And I applied to University of Florida, and they was taking people with a cutoff. You had to have, you know, they wanted people to have almost an A average in the last 60 hours. And I told them, I said, if I had an A average in the last 6 hours, I'd already been in law school.
Right.
So,
okay.
So that, you know, that was an adventure, but it ended up, my daughter ended up going to University of Florida and getting in med school, and in 2004, so it was sort of like something evolved from the 70s when I wanted to be there and wasn't there. Then I had my brother-in-law graduated from there in engineering, and then my daughter got it. She went in med there. She's a pharmacist now with the VA.
Okay.
And so I still feel good that somebody in the family still.
Something came of it.
Yeah, came of it. Yeah.
Gotcha. I hear you.
Yeah, so.
Okay. So what did you do so how did you get into the Air Force? What did you do after you decided not to go to law school?
Okay, after I didn't go to law school, I was teaching school in Clarke, and I wanted to do something different. And so I just told the principal one day, I walked in there, and he said, he was telling me about he wanted to have me transferred and wanted me to go in administration and be an assistant principal and all this good stuff. And I said, you know, I'm really not interested in this school thing. He goes, what? And I said, really? I said, I'm just putting you on notice that I'm going to leave soon when I find somewhere I want to go. And he couldn't believe it. And so what happened, a friend of mine was telling me about being a probation officer and working with kids. And this is something that I felt that I needed I could do.
Right.
And even though I took a pay cut, you know, to come do the job, if I stayed with the school system and all, I could have retired probably up in the $70,000 or $80,000, and I was down there probably barely making 40 when I retired. So, but I did something that I was happy to do. You know, intrinsically, you know, I felt like I gave something to my fellow man that, you know,
I hear you.
I felt good about doing.
All right, so where are we at now? You didn't?
Okay, so when I moved to in '72, I came to Panama City here as a probation officer, and eventually about '79, I moved. A friend of mine was telling me about the Air Force Reserve that they had a flight squadron over at Eglin Field 3. And I said, well, I've never been around the flight squadron, but I said, well, I'm in the court, and I was doing court work, juvenile defenders, and it was trying to burn out. So I went over to Eglin, and they asked me what did I want to do. I told them I wanted a job in supply counting boxes. They said, what? I said, listen, I work in court all the time. Last thing I want to do is be anything important. I say, I've been stressed out by classified information in the military. I said, all I want to do is be a regular guy. I want to count boxes and drink beer after I get off work. And so the recruiter told me, he said, I'm just going to be straight with you. He said, so I get monitored while I sign people. And he said, with you having been in classified information and what you've been doing, he said, I can't assign you to, no supply thing, count boxes. He said, you have to forget about that. He said, but I tell you what I can do. He said, we need a training person with the flight squadron. He said, with your ability to help train the guys that are on flight status. And he said, even though we got a guy in that slot, he said, if you go in that, he said, and with your ability, you can still get promoted in that slot because you've been in college and everything else. And so that's where I ended up there, and I stayed there from 79 to 95. Then I was a training manager for the 711 Flight Squadron. And one of the big things, I think it was in 1982, they did a program like they had never done. They tried something. They took some reserve people and put them to the academy with the active duty people. But they picked people that they knew that that they thought could pass the academy, because if you ever fail the academy in the military, then you're going to be going home someday.
Okay.
So that was the challenge to be picked. And I didn't even know that I was going to be picked for the academy. But even before then, I was in this reserve unit, and it was like a highlighted unit. It was at Eglin, and it got a lot of attention. Had been a congressman from that area, had worked with it long, and so you had to be the whole unit, you had to be kind of sharp in that unit, You couldn't be no derelict, because there were a lot of people wanted to be in the unit. So if you didn't keep up the snuff, you wouldn't be there long.
Right.
And so what they did, they created an IG team. You know what an IG team is?
Inspector General.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came in one day, and my supervisor told me I needed to go to a meeting over there for the Fulbright Colonel's office across the road. And I said, well, what is it? He said, I don't know. I said, how can you not know? You're the supervisor. He said, well, when they called me in and told me you had to be there, and I asked them what it was for, they told me I didn't need to know. And I said, what? He said, and they told me that if I wanted to still be here and have a job, I better make sure that you get there.
Right.
And I said, well, okay. And so I went to this meeting, and everybody was sitting around, and when the Fulbright Colonel, that nobody can't say nothing unless you get the answers reviewed, then you raise your hand or whatever. And so I saw all these people sitting around the table. I said, what the world is going on? Nobody said what it was about. And then they started talking about the IG team to some extent. And I just kept looking at him, so finally he said, anybody got any questions? So I raised my hand. I said, sir, why am I at this meeting? He said, you've been volunteering to be on the IG team. I said, but my supervisor mentioned it, and I said, he wanted to be on it. He said, you couldn't want to be on it. He said, it was no choice for nobody to be on it. He said, everybody on this team was picked. And he said, it had to be approved by me, even if I didn't know him. And he said, you're here because you can do something and do it the way that we want it done. He said, we're under the lamp with this IG team. And he said, I think it was numbered Air Force was going to be watching them, and it was just something that somebody wanted to do,
Right.
And so that was one of the greatest challenges. So I went from being in classified information overseas to being in an IG team and going to the academy, with the Air Force too. So.
Okay.
But that was the only thing that really sort of bothered me. But I found when I got in Okinawa, I ran there. One of the things that really, caused me some concern and kind of bothered, that guy that I told you what we got mixed up with, I ran into some people that was at Gary Ann with me, and they told me that he had got killed over in Vietnam.
Okay.
And then there was another guy He was the smallest guy in our unit. He was like a little midget, and his name was Bell. And he was just so excited about going in the Army and all. And I understand that he got killed in Vietnam. So,
Wow, okay.
and so that was kind of touching to have, know someone that you trained with and they went somewhere and then they didn't make it back,
Right.
I felt like it could have been me, either one of those guys,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to your friends a little later. How did you stay in touch with your family? I know one year your wife was with you.
Yeah, she came over and stayed about 11 months, I think, when I was over.
But the rest of the time, and even when she was with you, the rest of your family, how did you communicate?
Well, when I was overseas, I just wrote them. And I didn't come home a lot, because, going from teaching school to being a sergeant, well, I wasn't a sergeant when I went in.
Right.
You just didn't have a lot of money. They started off about $90 a month. And so you couldn't jump on a plane and fly over for $90 a month.
Right.
And so I just came back home when they got ready to transfer me from one unit to another. They gave you time to go, but other than that, you had to go pay your own way when you came home.
Mm-hmm. Well, unless you caught a hop, right?
Yeah.
Military hop.
Military hop.
You had to time that perfectly, otherwise you'd be left in the lurch.
Yeah, you would. Yeah. So,
Okay.
so,
All right. Okay. How did you have all the supplies that you needed the entire time you were in the service?
yeah, I didn't ever go a lack of anything because I was never in a what you call a frigid area, So I always had just regular clothes and whatever. In the winter time when I was in Chicago area, Gary and them, you had to have, because it froze. You know how cold it gets in Chicago.
Yes.
And I was there in November, Thanksgiving time, so it got real cold.
Okay.
But other than that, they gave you cold wear, they gave you long johns and
Right.
whatever you needed to have.
This was your interview, but I was stationed in Europe for 2.5 years in Germany.
So you
Goes right through the uniform, right through the
Yeah,
bone.
right through, yeah.
Yeah. How was the food?
The food was okay with me. I wasn't never really a food person. I've only weighed about 140 pounds. And so I came up in a family of about 6 of us all together, my grandmother and all. And so, we never had a whole bunch of food to eat and throw stuff up. So I was never concerned, if I got something, whatever, it was easy going,
Okay.
I was never really this food person. I had to have a steak or else I got upset, So,
Don't tell me that. But anyway,
yeah.
I'm talking about me.
Oh, yeah.
How did you handle pressure and stress?
Okay, I handled it in a way, but first of all, I was going to, I was in school, during my off time. And I had been around other relatives that had been in the military. I had cousins that was in the Korean conflict.
Right.
And all, and so they used to come back and talk to me about it. And having been going through college, I had some discipline, and I was older and I was married. So some young kid from high school would have handled it different way. I didn't get all upset about the rules because I knew that the military set up the rules, and if you wanted to change them, there were ways to do it. So I didn't waste a lot of time trying to, to combat what the military was doing.
Right.
I had other things to do to get in trouble with, about the rules thing. And so therefore, and I always worked hard, to do my job the best I could. And so that was just something that I didn't have to deal with in a way,
Okay.
I knew where I was going, and I had goals from like I had in college, so I knew how to work hard. And if you work hard, a lot of things that just didn't get in your way,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. Oh. Okay. So you didn't get to travel a lot of places while you were in the service, no?
Well, now overseas was the only place that I got to go. I did get to go through Tokyo.
Oh.
But they wouldn't let us get off. You know how you fly on a group flight?
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let us get off. they flew us to Hawaii, and they stopped to check the plane or something. They wouldn't let you get out there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the military, you know,
That happened to
really
me.
good about that. You have a good time, you know.
Ireland, I missed my Ireland and
Yeah.
my London trip. I was
Yeah.
aggravated. But anyway,
But if you got off and then something happened, they would have to leave you there, see.
Yeah.
And that would be another issue, trying to get you there.
Right.
Then the military would pick you up and all, so they just made everybody stay on the plane.
correct. Do you remember anything? Can you tell me anything particularly humorous or unusual events? A couple of things, possibly.
Well, there was one incident when I was overseas. I had an interview for a job to work in Intel. And I didn't understand all the procedure because I was just a young guy, you know, I was just a PFC. So when the guy helped me get an interview, I just had the interview. So I went to the first sergeant and told him I had an interview.
Uh-huh.
And he told me since it didn't come through the office that I didn't have it, you know. And he told me he was going to put me on detail anyway. So, and he didn't ask me who the interview was with. It was with the Intel people.
Right.
You don't mess with Intel, you know. And so I went on and did the detail, and I went later on, and they asked me why did I cancel, why I wasn't there on time. I said the first sergeant canceled it, and he said, well, what's his name? And I told him, he said, okay, I'm gonna give you another one. He said, you go back to your unit. And I was going back to my unit, and as I got almost to the building, the first sergeant come running out there waving his hand and everything. Hey, you know. He said, why you didn't tell me you were going to Intel? And I said, well, you didn't ask me. You told me you didn't make the appointment. And I told the major what you said, and he asked me what was your name. And he told me that he dismissed me. All he wanted was your name. He said, listen, whatever. He said, I'm gonna notice. He said, they might shut me out. He said, he said, never tell those people, you know, that I ever canceled anything. So I learned about the rank thing.
Did you go back and get the interview?
I interviewed and I got the job. And it gave me a chance to work regular, and I worked with classified information.
Good, I got you.
But I knew that enough that it wasn't my decision. So whatever he told me to do, I just went along with it.
Right.
I didn't know the guy was gonna come on, but I found out later on that you didn't mess with Intel.
No.
It was, you know, you mess with somebody else. You know?
Right. who the cook, right? The cook.
Yeah, mess with the cook and the guy at the motor pool. Yeah, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure. Okay, you gave me who was in the photograph in the black and white.
Yeah, that was a full-bird colonel.
And which one? In the color? In the
black and white.
In the black and white.
Yeah, that was a full-bird colonel and a sergeant major.
And what were they presenting you with?
They was promoting me to sergeant.
Okay.
Okay.
And in the color photo?
The color photo, that's when I was in the flight squadron. I was training manager, like the guys that flew the planes.
Yes.
They had to have their records kept up and stuff like that. And that's what my job was.
Okay.
And I was assigned only to the commander, saw the guy Penning.
Uh-huh.
He was giving me not a promotion, but he was giving me an accommodation for doing a good job. So.
Do you remember the names of the gentlemen in the black and white?
No.
Okay.
It's been so long.
And what about the color? I understand.
The sergeant, the lieutenant commander on there, I got an award that I might have to go back there and dig on the award and see, but other than that, I couldn't, because I've been out of the Air Force Reserve since 95, I believe.
No, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I gave you the squadron that I was in, the 711 Flight Squadron.
Okay.
And he was the squadron commander, and I think his name was Lieutenant Colonel Lowe, L-O-W-E.
All right.
That's the best of that, because I can remember being under him, you know.
Okay. Did you keep a diary?
No, I didn't. I didn't keep a diary. Most of my time when I wasn't working, and something else you didn't ask me. Something else important that I did.
What is that?
Okay, the Air Force Reserve unit that I was assigned to, for some reason, Department of Defense said that we could have an IG team. You know what an IG team is?
Inspector General.
Inspector General.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they had to select people to be on this, and they wanted the best of the best. And so my supervisor was telling me that he was gonna try to volunteer to get himself on there. And he was like a master sergeant, and I was just a tech, you know. And so I said, oh, I hope you make it and all. And one day I showed up to work, and he said, you gotta report to the Fulbright Colonel's office.
Keep going.
Yeah, and I said, well, I gotta go. And he said, well, they told me that I didn't have a need to know. You know what that means when they say you don't have a need to know,
Right.
it ain't none of your business.
Right.
He said, you just be there in time. He said, if you don't go and I tell you to do something, I'll have to be retired. I'll be going home when you get back, you know. And I went over there and all these people were sitting down and I want to know why was I there, you know. So they was talking and asking about what was going on. Then they said they were going to have an IT team. And I raised my hand. I said, excuse me, sir. I said, all these people sitting here, I said, is this the team that my supervisor's supposed to be on? They said, no. They said, the only people here were picked. And he said, and I said, well, I mean, I'm going to be on the team. Nobody didn't tell me about it. He said, well, you didn't need to know about it. So, then the next thing I knew, I was issued a special, you know, you get a special ID tag that says, IG, you know, when you go around, and nobody wants to bother you. Nobody wants to bother you when you go.
Right.
And, but you got to, everything you say when you inspect somebody, you got to be right.
Right.
You can't second guess it. And because when it goes up the channel, the IT team, the group over the IT team is a full bird colonel. And it goes up from where you are, you know, so.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Where were you when you were separated from the service?
I was at Fort Hood, Texas.
And where did you go after you got out?
I went to business school in Memphis, Tennessee for a couple of months. And then I came back home and I started school teaching, and eventually I moved here to Panama City, and that was in 72, in March of 72, and I've been here full time, retired here and everything.
Since 72?
Yeah, I've been living here since 72.
And have you done any other job, or you have just been self-sufficient?
I retired in 97, I believe. And other than then, I've been doing my volunteer work. I had a reading program for that motorhome you see out there.
Uh-huh.
I went around to people's kids' home. That was my desire, to provide in-home reading services, because reading is the biggest problem for especially.
So from 72 to 90?
Well, not the whole time, but from 72, I've always doing outreach work. I've been doing programs for kids and all kind of stuff, and all of it's been related.
So who are you working for?
I was just volunteer.
Okay.
The name of my program is the Kane Townsley Outreach.
You had your own program?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the Kane Townsley Outreach.
Uh-huh.
And all I did, I took part of my retirement money and paid for whatever I need.
Okay.
I bought that motorhome out of my own funds, and I bought by my own books, and I didn't elicit any funds from anybody because it took too much time. And then when you elicit funds, then you got to go tracking the funds, and then all of this. So I didn't. If someone wanted to help me, they could jump in the motorhome and go with me.
Okay.
And,
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, it was my part of giving back.
I
Because
understand.
when I was just a young kid, I didn't have, and so I always wanted to do this for somebody else.
Got it. All right. So you finished your master's degree while you were in the service.
No, I just went to school for a while. and
Did you
then-
use your GI Bill outside of the service?
No, I didn't use it.
Okay.
I just went to school when I was in there under the government program, but when I got outside and started working, see when I got out, when I came back in here in 72,
Yeah.
and I think in 73 I joined the reserves.
Uh-huh.
And so I was working full time and in the reserves.
Okay.
And then trying to go to school, I tried to do that, and I was really doing 3 things at one time.
Right.
And it was too much of stress,
Right.
so I just dropped to going to school, stayed in the reserves, kept my daytime job, and this did my work in the community on the side. And when I got up,
Okay.
like this morning, I went and checked on 2 kids this morning,
Uh-huh.
and one day next week we're going to take them to the store and buy them some clothes and try to get them back in school. This single family home, and the father, he's dropped out of school. He can't read hardly anything, so it's just so much to be done, you know.
Tell me.
And if you can do 1 family at a time or 2 families, so I only have 2 families that I'm doing now. A lot of people have been displaced, you know.
Have you continued any of your friendships from the service?
Yeah, there's one guy that's was overseas with me. I keep up with him. There are many more guys that I was in the service with that I know. Because I'm in the Buffalo Soldiers, most of the guys are prior military. And so we keep up that way. I spend a lot of time with military guys. I have this, what's called the spirit of court. And so I like being around, and you know, it's just like a family-like thing, you know.
Right.
And
I got it. Okay. How did your military experience influence your thinking about war? And how did the military affect your life?
well, my thinking about war, you know, Shakespeare said something about like politics is a necessary and evil bedfellow. Sometimes about war, sometimes it's a necessary and evil bedfellow. My major is in history and social studies, so I know that countries have gotten to where they are because of conflicts, and there's always been conflicts. So I don't look at it personally. I don't, you know, if there was some other way of going in, you know, having people losing lives, you know, I wouldn't want that to be. I didn't have any reservations about going. I wouldn't have decided to be a Jehovah's Witness to keep from going. You know, I wouldn't have decided to be a medic after I got in. You know, if I'd had the fire when I went through the training and learned, you know, because I learned how to shoot before I went in, was in the country. We were shooting rabbits and things with shotguns and rifles.
Right.
But I didn't have no real adventures to just take somebody's life. But when they told me that I was going to Vietnam, I knew that, you know, when you go to Vietnam or any other war thing, don't care what your job is, you could be in conflict. If they need you to combat, then you got to go in a combat role, you know.
Right.
You're not, that's don't mean you're going to work in the job that you're trained. And so I just took it as life sake. It is what it is, you know. And, oh, yeah. What
Go ahead.
effect it had on me overall?
Yeah. What effect did the military have on your life overall?
The military gave me a sort of like a little easier jump start. You know, when I got out of college, you know, you're young, you think you know a whole lot. But when I got in the military and intermixed with all of these people, and then I got to exist on a power structure. See, when I was in college, I wasn't under that power structure. You know, you had the college president and you didn't ever see him. You know, you just had the teachers to deal with. But when I got in the military and found out, you know, what the whole life was about, and I found out a lot about human beings existing with people that sometimes the people didn't like you, and it wasn't your priority to go around and try to make somebody like you, you know.
Right.
Your job was to go ahead on and enjoy your life and do what you're supposed to do. And this is what the military, it gave me roots to being strong enough. I've always, my adage is that if you can survive the military, you can survive anything.
This is true.
Yeah, so when I walked out of the military after those 2 years and 9 months of active duty, and my father-in-law came to me once, and we were getting ready to go, and we had just been married less than a year, and he said, you know, those people that started those wars over there, politicians and all, and I told him, I said, the job that you have at the mill, he was working at a mill, I said,
Right.
the same people that own that mill are the same people that run in this war. I say they cousins and relatives. I say it's always the haves and the have-not. I say, do you hire anybody where you work? He said, no. I said, do you fire anybody? I said, no. I said, if it wasn't for somebody's decision, you wouldn't have your job. And I said, if it wasn't somebody's decision, I wouldn't have my job. And I said, I'm got to take life on. I say, I can't go around trying to skirt around life because, hey, this might be dangerous. I'm not going to step out in front of 18-wheelers, you know, now that I can't hear it coming. You know, if somebody say bus, I'm going to step back and say, where's the bus? You know. So I'm a pragmatist to that point, you know.
I got you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I left out one person. Ida? I just wanted to state that.
He needs your opinion on something.
I just wanted, why don't you just, right there. Can you sit right there? Right there. Just have a seat.
Grab a knee.
And you married?
Right here? You're married.
I left out one person who's been here attentively during the entire interview, and that's state your name, please.
Ida Clarke,
Thank you. And Ida is the
wife.
wonderful partner and wife of Mr. Robert Clarke. Thank you very much for the both of your services. Okay, and thank you very much for this fabulous interview.
Well, thank you for having this interview with Mr. Clarke.
My pleasure.